You see this every day. A driver at a gas station. The numbers on the pump climb higher. You pay with your cards or your cash. It feels like a simple transaction, fuel for money. But you aren't just buying gasoline. You are participating in a system. A different kind of payment happened long before you arrived. A payment made in a currency that isn't yours. To buy oil from anywhere in the world, from the deserts of Saudi Arabia or the ports of the UAE, you must first buy US dollars. This is not an accident. It is not a free market choice. It is the result of a secret deal struck in quiet rooms 50 years ago. A deal that turned black oil into a green dollar asset. Why must the entire planet trade its energy in one nation's currency? To understand this, we must go back to 1971. The world's financial system was breaking. The US dollar was tied to gold. Nations could exchange their dollars for America's gold reserves. But America was spending too much, funding a war in Vietnam, funding its domestic programs. It was printing more paper dollars than it had gold in its vaults. The world knew this. Countries lined up, demanding their gold back. The vaults were emptying. So, in August 1971, President Nixon went on television. He cut the dollar's final tie to gold. The gold standard was dead. Panic followed. The dollar had no anchor. It was just paper, backed only by a promise. America's global power was at risk. If the world stopped using the dollar, the American empire would fracture. They needed a new anchor. They needed something every nation had to buy. Then, in 1973, the oil crisis hit, and Washington saw its answer. The answer wasn't in a bank vault. It was deep under the Saudi Arabian desert. Secret meetings were held, not between cheering crowds, but between treasurers and diplomats. The U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger flew to Riyadh. A simple, brutal bargain was made. The U.S. offered the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia full military protection, advanced weapons, and a guarantee that their royal house would be safe from enemies, a shield for their kingdom. In exchange, the Saudis, the leaders of OPEC, had to do two things. First, they must only accept US dollars for every barrel of oil they sold. No pounds, no yen, no francs, only dollars. Second, they would take the billions of dollars they earned and recycle them. They would use that money to buy US Treasury bonds. This means they were lending the money right back to the US government. The US government could now print money, give it to Saudi Arabia for oil, and Saudi Arabia would lend that same money back to the US. It was a perfect loop. The petrodollar system was born. The dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was backed by oil. More accurately, it was backed by the world's need for oil. And this is where the system reveals its terrifying genius. Suddenly, every country faced a new reality. Germany needed oil to run its factories. Japan needed oil to fuel its ships. Italy needed oil to keep the lights on. To buy that oil, they couldn't use their own money. They first had to go to the currency market. They had to sell their marks, their yen, their lira, and buy US dollars. This created a massive, permanent, artificial demand for American currency. The US was now the toll collector for the global economy. This system gave America three unbelievable powers. 1. It could print dollars without causing hyperinflation at home, because all those new dollars were absorbed by other countries, just sitting in their central bank reserves waiting to buy oil. America exports its inflation to the rest of the world. 2. It could fund its massive government deficits. The US spends more than it earns. It pays for this by selling treasury bonds, its debt. And who is the guaranteed buyer? The oil exporting nations recycling their petrodollars. The US funds its debts with the world's energy money. 3. It became a financial weapon. If a country defied the US, Washington could cut them off from the dollar banking system. If you cannot get dollars, you cannot buy oil. Your economy grinds to a halt. The dollar became more powerful than an aircraft carrier. We think we pay for oil at the pump, That is the small price. The real price is paid by every nation, forced to hold the currency of an empire, just to power their society for one more day. For 50 years, this silent agreement has governed the world. It has financed wars, it has created bubbles, it has kept the US at the center of the financial map. The container ships still cross the ocean, the tankers still leave the ports, the banks in New York still process the payments. The system is so total we don't even see it anymore. We mistake it for normal. But it is not normal. It is a political arrangement, an invisible empire built not on land, but on a financial contract. A contract written in oil and paid for in dollars. Look at the skyscrapers in any financial district at night. The lights are on, the data is flowing. That is the glow of the petrodollar, the silent, powerful engine that turns the world's thirst for energy into one nation's unending financial power.